that.
My back is broken.
What do you mean, calm it down? It's a fight. Referees telling two fighters who want to fight to calm it down. He should calm down.
So he's like a clown in his show, man. He's not your guy.
Because Tyson Fury's back, and all you motherfuckers are under attack. Look, Eddie Hearn can say all what he likes. Who gives a shit what Eddie Hearn says? It's garbage.
Are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?
Can you let me retire and be happy? Please, just please.
Bombs away from the Bronx Bomber! Water! Let's go, baby! Let's go!
I'm through. They put somebody else up and give me an interview. What are you talking about? You never give me a fair shake. HBO needs to fire you. You don't know shit about boxing. You ain't shit. You're not shit. I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
I got dropped, man. No. You won the fight.
OMG. I am sorry.
Yes. What is up? MCR family? Another semi-daily edition of the show live on YouTube, obviously podcast form, iTunes, Spotify, radio, etc. All that good stuff. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Hopefully, this show can go on without any technical issues. My computer is struggling like a motherfucker right now. I've been looking into what stores I can go to fix it at. But before I can do that, I want to at least get one show going. So we have a little bit of a MacGyvered system set up. But without further ado, let me get to my co-host on today's show as we break down some boxing topics and actually some big stuff coming out. You know, Tyson Fury, AJ Wilder is always going to be a big talking point and situation, so to speak, in the boxing world. And it's sort of heating up right now all of a sudden today. So let's talk about that as well. Whyte Ruiz negotiations, so to speak, and money and offers being thrown out there. We're going to dive into that one. Leonard Ellerby of Mayweather Promotion saying that Gervonta Davis, Leo Santa Cruz is not happening this year. A lot to get into. British Boxing Board of Control coming out with their guidelines of how boxing can come back into the UK. A hardcore and hipster darling, Israel Madrimov, calling out Jason Rosario. And I just want to talk about this because I want to shit on Israel Madrimov because I know Rob loves him and Rob's listening to the show. So I want to, mess with Rob. And also we're going to talk about at the very end of the show how UFC and Endeavor, the parent company of UFC, are obviously in financial trouble. And that's why they are forcing UFC 249, the big pay-per-view, in just a week or 2 weeks. I forget exactly. I think 2 weeks. But digressing, like I said, let's get to my co-host, Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
Good. It's good to be back. We have some news. Hopefully Matt has fixed his computer issues, at least patched it up for a while.
We're here at least.
Band-Aid on a bullet hole kind of thing.
You get to see our pretty faces.
Yeah.
For the listeners, you get to see our faces and listen to us. So that's a plus. You're not going to see any of the articles right now. But hey, it's okay. You get to, still see us. And I'm going to get Skype on as well. So if you guys want to call in, Skype Mixed Combat Radio. But Gary, yes, back to you.
I had a 407 barbecues in Argyle for lunch today. I had some ribs. And now we have a show. So I'm in a good mood. It's any random given day of the week. Does anyone...
It's true though. I had ribs. I think it was like Saturday. Yes, it was Saturday. We barbecued some ribs and some chicken breasts. I mean, like my dad and mom came over and we all hung out in the backyard. 6 feet apart, but we still hung out. And man, the ribs were so fucking good. God damn, so good. And a couple days later, when I didn't have ribs, I was all depressed. So maybe there's a correlation. I don't know. Maybe get the scientists on that one, get the doctors on that one, like Trump said, the UV light, bleach, you, and also how ribs can affect your happiness.
It might have been the outdoors, right? Like if you're locked indoors for a while and then you go outside, the sunlight.
It does help.
Yeah.
I've gone outside in the backyard a few times and just hung out because I'm bored out of my mind. But digressing, we can talk about me being bored and being depressed all day if we wanted to, but we don't want to talk about that. You guys don't want to listen about that. So let's talk about some boxing. Bob Arum came out in an interview, and we're getting it by way of Manuk Akwapayan over at Boxing Scene. And he also worked for LA Times. Good guy. That Fury Wilder 3 could be delayed till 2021. On top of that, Gary, it comes out, I think, just before the show started. I mean, just 30 minutes before the show started, that Mark Kriegel has sources over at ESPN, or Mark Kriegel at ESPN has sources, I should say, that a Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua negotiation for Saudi Arabia is underway and actually happening. That MTK under the on the behalf, I should say, of Top Rank and Korean Spray Promotions are negotiating for a AJ fight in Saudi Arabia, like I said. Now, Shelly Finkel has said that fight's not going to happen. We are still going to have the Fury fight. That's Wilder's next fight. So maybe a situation here where we could have it where if, let's say, Gary, June, July, something rolls around where, let's say, a Pulev fight is off the table due to travel restrictions in some aspect. A Wilder fight is off the table due to travel restrictions, but an AJ and Fury fight is possible, even to Saudi Arabia, because of the British Airways direct flight to Saudi Arabia, like their connection, their monetary connection to Saudi Arabia. Is it possible, Gary, that we see perhaps, again, I'm just spitballing here just for the sake of a show as well, that we see a AJ Fury fight in Saudi Arabia or even the UK to some degree before we see Fury Wilder 3 or AJ faces mandatories? Is that possible? Or is this just talks, emails being sent, but nothing really going to come through with this? This is just maybe PR aspect. I don't know. But Gary, thoughts on this particular development?
So there's like two things. Like, one, do we need to make news? I'm not saying Kriegel made this up. I'm sure there's some smoke to it.
True.
But is he trying to make a story? You know, is he trying to make $1 out of 15 cents? Maybe. You know, like, is he stretching this? Maybe. Do I think it's out of the realm of possibility? No. I think, you know, having it in the UK is more reasonable than flying I know they could do it, but like, why? I guess because it would be more money. It just seems like
maybe you get back that attendance or gate revenue, I should say, with a potential site fee, even though it wouldn't be really anyone in attendance in Saudi Arabia, potentially. Right. I would hope so. At least there's nobody in attendance really in Saudi Arabia, unless, you know, people spread out like in Nicaragua. But regardless, I think that would be the thought process. We're going to lose 20, 30, 40 million on the gate because we don't have anyone to sell tickets to in the UK right now. In Saudi Arabia, we can get $100 million check from some oil prince and we're good to go. Maybe that's the thinking behind it.
You'd have to make up the lost money at the gate with a site fee. I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility. I don't know if it will happen, but I think there'll be rumors and discussions about this. And if I were Wilder, I'd say, go ahead, make the fight. Hope Joshua somehow picks off. If I were Wilder, I would say, go ahead. Under one condition, I get the fight with the winner. And hope that AJ somehow picks off Fury, because I think AJ can Wilder can beat AJ. He's got very little chance against Fury. So if I'm Wilder, I go take a tune-up in the meantime against a domestic fighter in the U.S. and hope AJ picks off Fury. If not, then I get my fight with Fury, which is still guaranteed when this all passes.
Eddie Hearn is stating that this is more of just a determining where this fight will happen, not when it will happen, i.e., in theory, right, let's have a preliminary agreement, not even in written contract form, but just a preliminary agreement between our parties that this fight, when it does happen, happens in Saudi Arabia or the UAE or Wembley. We get some sort of financial package in order now in thought process just to have it in planning. And that's what Eddie is sort of saying. I don't think that's untrue per se, but I also don't think that a guy like Eddie and people over at MTK, Frank Warren, Bob Arum, they're not thinking outside the box right now. And they're not trying to earn money right now and generate revenue right now during this time. I know Bob Arum's more of like, hey, if there's no testing, it's not happening. He's putting a lot more red lines, so to speak, than other promoters. But I don't think it's out of line for, let's say, this fight to happen in Saudi Arabia in the fall, let's say. right? November, December, sort of
Yeah.
mirroring the timing of maybe AJ Ruiz, the second
Right,
fight.
the fourth quarter of the year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe get your tune-up out of the way, i.e. your mandatory in Pulev in a non-attendance or, limited attendance venue in the summertime or whenever things get.
just do it now. Just because we don't even need cameramen. Just go to the gym and just do it. The two of you. We test them both and the referee and the 3 judges and just let it be. And then, maybe one like stenographer to report what happened. That's like 8 people. Put them in the ring. Like, no one wants to see it anyway. So just let's get it over with so we can get to real fight. It's not like they got to go make weight. They're heavyweights. Just go in the ring and fight each other and get this over with.
Gary, I like how you skip past like somebody with the iPhone can just record it. No, like fuck that. It's so bad. I don't even want to see the fight. No one needs to record it. That's hilarious. I just think that we're in such a weird time, and I think that normalcy is not anywhere around the corner, to be quite honest. And I think people are finally, especially people within the industry, are finally understanding that, hey, in June, we're not going to get 20,000 people back in a venue. Like that's like a 20,000 person stadium show is out of the question now for at least 2 years. So you have to think about other things. You have to think about other ways to adapt to this model if you want to make money. Now, you got all those listening know that I'm of the mindset we don't need any of these fights right now. All these top guys are millionaires and multimillionaires. They can sit out a year or two and wait. The undercard guys, mid-card guys, totally different conversation. But regardless of them, tabling them for a second, talking about these types of fights, the AJ and Fury fights, they don't need to happen right now, in my opinion. But regardless, they're going to happen because some of these promoters, some of these networks need content. They need income. They need revenue. And these big fights generate that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see this storyline or this narrative or this just story overall, I should say, this media story, progress more. Not saying that we actually get this fight per se, but I would not be surprised, let's say in the next 2 weeks, to get a few more big articles like this talking about the negotiation between AJ and Fury. A, because there's nothing going on right now, and B, because of the current paradigm, this is maybe more feasible than other fights that are contractually obligated for either man, Pulev and Wilder, respectively. Gary, any other thoughts on AJ, Fury, and Wilder and this saga that will never ever end?
I think they may force some of these big fights in because they need money too, right? Like they're losing money. That fight instantly makes them money. You know what I'm saying? It won't be competing against any other sports, so they'll have a monopoly on like the sporting world. Like I think it'll do a huge pay-per-view number. I think they're gonna look. I don't know how easily it can be made, but they're gonna look to make that fight or some other bigger fights because those big fights, like one Canelo fight, makes Golden Boy's year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, it does literally.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
I think like that's gonna get in discussions, and then like Oscar's gonna look at his, his checkbook and be like, well, what if I put Canelo in an empty arena?
Rob in the chat. Shout out to Rob. I love you, Rob. Hope you're doing well over there in the UK. Late right now. Just go to bed, Rob. Past your bedtime. How much step aside do you think it would take for Wilder to allow it? I'm thinking, let's say if we get, because British Boxing Board Control, we're going to get to it later. They want to open up by like June, July, right? With these no fan shows, these shows behind closed doors. Let's say we get an AJ Pulev fight at that time, right? Get it out of the way as much as we can, right? That I think is a little bit feasible. And let's say we hit August, September, October, and the world is not normal still. And the reports are all stating that the fall we're going to get a second wave and maybe even worse wave than what we've seen this spring. So, or winter as well. So I would not be surprised if travel restrictions either get more intense or they sort of sustain itself throughout this period, right? Where the countries are kind of in lockdown from each other, so to speak. That's why we can't get fights like Jermaine Herring and Frampton together, because the fight needs to be in Belfast, but they can't get to Belfast due to certain restrictions. So I if they approach Wilder with a package of, I don't know how much money, let's say $10 million, right? It can't be as much to fight, but it has to be enough to him to be satisfied. $10 million, let's say. And with the thought process of, and the negotiation of, hey, look, Wilder, we can't fight you right now. Like, you can't come here. We can't come there. We're here. Can we have this fight right now? And we'll give you this giant check. And maybe Wilder says yes to that. Maybe he doesn't.
Jump at it. If they offer you 10, I was going to say 5. If they offer you 10, jump at it. Go fight Hellenius, knock him out, get $3, $4, $5 million. That's $15 million for an easy night's work, and you have the perfect out. I can't fight him right now. He can't come here. I can't come there. What do you want me to do? You got $15 million for an easy knockout, and you hopefully get the chance that Joshua could pick off Fury, so you get to fight Joshua. But I would make that stipulation. I get the winner in 2021.
Oh, I was about to add that. You absolutely have to add the stipulation of, I don't just get Fury, I get the winner.
Right.
Because if AJ wins, then the Fury Wilder trilogy fight no longer becomes the fight in theory.
Right.
Right? It then becomes AJ just beat Fury. Now we want to see AJ Wilder again. It will instantly become even though we all kind of are of the mindset that Fury would beat Wilder in a trilogy fight, it doesn't matter anymore. That's how short-minded we are as just a human species, right? Like we will think that. You get that in writing in the contract, in the step-aside contract. Absolutely. That I mean, collect my check, but I want the winner. Absolutely. That would be interesting to see. In terms of maybe the mandatories, because we have, after Pulev, we then have Usyk in theory or Usyk, Chisora winner, Usyk. He would then be called up as well. We have Dylan Whyte that is deserving of a mandatory, that owed a mandatory in the first quarter. I want to say, I forget the exact month, first quarter of 2021. So it would be interesting to see if that is even allowed from the sanctioning body perspective. Because there's so many moving parts here. And again, with
the sanctioning bodies don't make it because of the sanctioning fee associated with it. They'll make it. Whatever they got to do.
We never know, man.
You don't know. You absolutely don't know what the sanctioning bodies are going to do. That's true.
Talking about you, man. They're the hardest group to predict in the sport. Every time it's the sanctioning bodies. Because they obviously have their favorites, but even then, like, they treat their favorites shitty sometimes too. It's weird. Sanctioning bodies, I think, have major ego issues, but that's beside the point. I think it's possible to see that fight happen. Back to Rob's point, if they offer the step aside with the guarantee of Wilder facing the winner of Fury AJ, you can make it happen. Again, with the added context of, we have intense travel restrictions. This doesn't go away. We're still in this paradigm. Why not? Because those two guys are still in the same country while these guys are separated by a fucking ocean. Gary.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Just make sure you're okay. Any other thoughts on these heavyweights?
No, and I just on the sanctioning bodies real quick. The sanctioning bodies think they're in the position like the NBA, like you have to play for them. You really don't. Like, Canelo doesn't even need a belt. Wilder, Joshua, they don't even need a belt, and they'll be the biggest draw. Like,
the sanctioning bodies are the New York Knicks.
The New York Knicks, kind of the minor league team, kind of like the D League team.
Like the position, like the New York Knicks, like never needed to go and like negotiate strongly with players, and they never really trade aggressively. Because they're thinking, we're New York, we're the Knicks. You're going to want to come to us. It's kind of like the Lakers to a degree.
How much are you furious if you're a Knicks fan that Kyrie and Kevin Durant had full intentions of coming to New York, but your franchise is such a joke and such a disaster that they looked at you and said, "Nah, just go to the Nets."
The Nets.
How?
Look, I guarantee our UK listeners have no idea the context of that. And I wish Rob was here so I can like walk him through a context, an example, and a comparison that he could bring up. Because the Nets are like, they were the biggest fucking laughingstock in basketball my entire life.
They were the Bengals of the NBA.
Whoa, that's how dare you disrespect Chad Ochocinco? How dare you? But digressing, yes, shout out to the Knicks and the Nets being better than them now, which is fucking hilarious. Bob Arum, still speaking of top ranking Bob Arum, they're eyeing a Pacquiao Crawford fight in the Mid East or Macau over boxing. Shout out to Manuk Aquapine with the article again. Since Gary back, I'll say it again. Bob Arum stating that Pacquiao Crawford could happen in Macau or the Middle East. Quote, I think the fight would have to take place outside of the United States, Arum told Boxing Scene in an interview. The question is, do we do it in the Middle East or outside of China in Macau? How quick would they be to open up? We're working on it. This is not a period of business as usual. He then adds, when oil was $50 a barrel, the Middle East was a target market. Now that it's down, I don't know how viable it is, but they're good fans. The Saudis want to build up tourism. We would be amenable to do events over there. We can't do the fight in the United States right now because of the travel ban. Gary, thoughts on Pacquiao Crawford in Macau, China?
Well, Pacquiao fought in Macau a couple of times. I know he fought Bam Bam Rios there, right?
It was such a bad fight. Oh my god,
It wasn't great.
that pay-per-view by myself.
There would be fans there if they were doing it in Macau, wouldn't there? Because why would you put it in this casino? I'm assuming they're putting it in one of the casinos in Macau. If there weren't going to be fans there, that would make no sense.
Are they thinking of like we have this fight in the fall, and in theory maybe China's good by then? Like herd immunity comes into place in China, and like they open up. Is that what?
To have let's say it's a 20,000 seat arena, to have 20,000 fans? I mean, that seems far-fetched to me, but I don't know.
Then they did. I don't know. Because you think about for a casino like Macau, the big point of them having these big site fees is to bring in high rollers to gamble, to spend money on food, and do all that stuff in the casino, right? To make money of everyone that is coming for the fight, staying there in the hotel suites, gambling, all that stuff, right? That's not happening anymore, right? With Saudi Arabia, they buy sports for propaganda.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, think about their huge venue that they built for Anthony Joshua and Ruiz. That wasn't a big venue at all. That was the StubHub Center. Okay. Like, no, just be honest, right? So, like, the idea is not, it's tourism, right? That is to bring tourism. So it's propaganda to the entire world of, hey, we're just like you. We're just like the West. We have sports here. So fans being there and attendance and gate revenue and generating revenue from the event, that doesn't really matter for the Saudis per se as much. It's not a moneymaker for them. It's a giant commercial for them. So the thought process is entirely different than Macau. Right, Gary? Am I wrong?
I would agree with that.
I don't think Macau happens because I don't think China or Macau is going to open up within a year. I don't see that happening. You know, if we're talking 5 years on the line, then maybe, but then Pacquiao is what, 45, 50 years old then? Like, let's be honest here. So that Macau is off the table, in my opinion. I think he's thinking that because Pacquiao has a relationship with Macau and whoever is the owner of those casinos there, and it's the proximity to the Philippines. That would just be easier for Pacquiao. It might be a way to get him to accept the fight. I just don't think Macau is really interested. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a package where it doesn't matter and they're not thinking about the Vegas mentality of a site fee, but it's a casino island. Like, that's literally what it is. So I don't see how they make money off of this in the current paradigm. Saudi Arabia, they're not worried about making money. It's a big, giant check for advertisement for the entire country. So that's why it's just entirely different. It's apples and oranges. Saudi Arabia could happen. I still don't think Pacquiao takes the fight because I don't think Pacquiao wants any of that Crawford smoke. I don't think Pacquiao wants any of the Spence smoke. I think Pacquiao is done. I think Pacquiao will take the Mayweather fight and walk off if he has to, but that's it.
What if they got an absurd site fee from Macau and Pacquiao could make $50 million on the fight? Would he take it then?
And plus, it's Macau, so he's probably more inclined to it. Maybe.
So it would have to be an astronomical amount of money. But I think he could fight one of those guys, but it would have to be a huge sum of money.
Like, I'll put it this way. Like, maybe he gets $30 million from Macau, and then he gets more from the networks, pay-per-views. You know, he gets another $50 million from that. That's possible. Because what's a bigger fight right now on pay-per-view? Pacquiao Crawford or Pacquiao Spence, like a Pacquiao fight in Macau against one of the big welterweights, right? Let's say that. Or Wilder Fury 3. Like, what's a bigger pay-per-view at this point in time.
Okay, so put Crawford away because the biggest fight would be Pacquiao Spence. That would be the biggest.
Okay.
Pacquiao Spence or Wilder Fury 3.
Does Pacquiao Spence hit $1 million? Close.
No, it doesn't.
Close. It hits close.
Thurman did 500,000.
Yes.
I'd say they're both pretty close. I still think Wilder Fury ekes it out by a little bit because we've seen the fights and they're heavyweights. So I would say like Wilder Fury does almost $1 million, and this does about 750 to 800,000. It's close though.
Yeah, I think it is a very, very healthy number. Let's put it that way. So what do you think? Do we think we get a Crawford Pacquiao fight this year in a overseas venue?
What is this? We're in May now.
Mm-hmm.
Boy,
are we in May now? Fuck. Don't.
It's April 30th. No, okay, it's April 30th.
But it's May. Like April 30th just means May, basically.
If it's this year, it'll be in December, like he fought Rios. I mean, December, January, February, in that realm of things, I think is totally reasonable. And like I said on the last show, I think Crawford will get a fight now because people looked at his last performance and said, if Kavasakis can rock him, drop him, I can beat him. Like I can beat this guy. I think that era of invincibility that he's a perfect boxer is diminishing. And
is there a comparison to like Triple G when he started looking a little bit touchable?
I think so. Danny Jacobs said when he was watching the Kell Brook fight, he watched Kell Brook, a welterweight, snap his head back up because like, you got to make this fight. I got to get this fight next. I think that's where we are with Crawford. Not that he's not a great fighter. I would still pick Crawford to win all these fights, but he can certainly lose them too.
Yeah, similar to Triple G. I don't think Triple G is not a great fighter, but there was a point where all of a sudden he did look beatable to a degree. Where like a Jacobs fight wasn't out of the question anymore, even though Jacobs was fighting a lot of no-name opponents at that point on his run to Triple G. And all of a sudden Canelo was far more accepting of the negotiation of the fight because Triple G was starting to look older. He's starting to look a little bit like the flaws were starting to be a little more obvious in Triple G's overall skill set. Similar to a degree with Crawford, that his lack of size, per se, his lack of power in the division, that's becoming a little bit apparent to a degree. Like he still has pop, he still has very respectable pop, but finishing a Jose Benavidez late doesn't really mean the same as fighting a Sean Porter or Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman or Earl Spence. And like there's just levels between those types of opponents.
If you're an inside fighter, if you're Porter or Spence in particular, and you look at the way he fought the Mean Machine,
Kavaliauskas,
and if that's how he's going to fight now, if he's a little more come forward, a little more flat foot, like Marquez was later in his career, I'm too big and strong for him. I'm going to take him out. Like I can stop him. And if Pacquiao, like if anyone walks straight in on me, they're going to be in a world of trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like Crawford's performance, it wasn't the worst performance in the world. He knocked out a top 15 to 20 welterweight. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, right? But it's telling of the way that he fought the fight. Right, just like Laura's performance, like Laura's no longer a mover. Now, that doesn't mean he's still not a master boxer. It's just that he fights differently now. And if he wants to fight Spencer or Porter in a phone booth like he did the Mean Machine, he's gonna lose.
I will add this: I don't think Crawford's inside game is his forte. Obviously,
it's not his forte. It's not terrible, but it's not his thing.
It's definitely not bad. Obviously, I think actually his inside game is very good. He's just so much of a skilled, excellent outside fighter that when he's now on the inside, that's not his forte. And people can take advantage of it because he naturally wants to be on the outside where he can fully extend his shots. And we saw that with the Gamboa fight like years ago too. Like we saw that if you can get under his shots, he does have a little bit of a trouble adjusting to that range difference at times. And if you can catch him on the right burst, he's not going to react fast enough. And his arms are going to be too wide, too far out, and you can slip under and clock him. Mean Machine did that to a degree. Even like Jeff Horn, I think, did some decent work in terms of pressuring Crawford. Crawford did such a good job of laterally moving that he was able to sort of keep on the outside as much as possible. But you can tell that Crawford did not want to engage with Jeff Horn on the inside at all. Benavidez had a lot of success on the inside, exchanging with Crawford when Crawford became a little more flat-footed. Crawford excels being a guy on the back foot, just moving around in circles with the jab, keeping you at his range. That's what he excels at. He is probably the best in the division at that. But I think certain guys can maybe take advantage of him, like Porter, maybe even a Danny, Pacquiao. Certain guys can take advantage of him for sure. I don't know if they would win, but they could take advantage of that flaw. Absolutely.
If he fights the way he fought against the Mean Machine, in that style, he's not beating those inside fighters, right? Because, I mean, you're taking your B style against their A game, and those are great fighters. So if you fight their A game, you're going to lose to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I would pick him to win, but not if he fights like that, you know?
No, I agree completely. Moving on, Dylan Whyte and Andy Ruiz have been going back and forth on social media, talking about a $5 million offer. That was actually a $4 million offer. Then Eddie Hearns said, no, well, if it was $4 million, then bump up to $5 million. We can make it, blah, blah, blah. All the while, I believe Whyte Povetkin is rescheduled for June, I want to say. I think there's a date for that fight. I forget the exact date for it. I think like June 26th or something. What to make of this, Gary? The Dylan Whyte, Eddie Hearn pushing for this Andy Ruiz fight when Andy Ruiz is coming off the loss to AJ. Because I have some opinions about it, and I think everyone knows my opinions off of my framing of the discussion already, but let me let you go first.
I'm glad that they want that fight. That Whyte wants Ruiz. It's a great fight. Mm-hmm. And it's two top five, I guess, 5 or 6. Five is whatever.
5 or 6, sure.
Heavyweights. And it shows me, like, I don't understand it for Whyte. I love it. I just don't understand why Whyte would take that fight when he's in the catbird seat for a title shot. I would pick Ruiz to win that fight. And I just think it's the wrong time to fight. Let Ruiz get a win. Let people show him that he's remotivated and that he's taking this again seriously. Because if you beat him now, it's kind of like, okay, he was a one-shot wonder. He's a has-been. He was never taking boxing that seriously. Let him get a win. Let him look good and then fight him. I wouldn't make this fight. I hope they do. But if I'm Whyte, I think it's a better fight for you down the road. That being said, I hope they make it.
I have a very different opinion from you, Gary. Okay. This is going to be interesting. I think Eddie Hearn and Dylan Whyte are, what's the right adjective to use for them right now? I think they're being clever to a degree, but pretty slimy. Trying to take AJ's leftovers again. Let's not forget that Joseph Parker coming off the loss to AJ. What was his first fight? Dylan Whyte. He lost that. I think there's a trend here to a degree where they want to get Dylan Whyte those big fights with the guys that lose to AJ. As barometer fights, as common opponents, right? It's a narrative. It's, you put on highlight reels that they fought the same guys. There's a way to, promote doing that. But also, it's a way to take out these top names when they're not at their best. They're coming off losses. They're losing their titles. Andy Ruiz is switching camps. To me, I feel like anyone wanting this fight right now, not pointing at you, Gary, even though you wanted it, anyone that's like really wanting this fight right now is not a true boxing fan. Because Andy Ruiz is switching trainers and is coming off a loss. He's not his best form. Why would he want this fight when one guy's on a huge win streak, right? Dylan Whyte's on a 5-year undefeated streak, it seems like, right? Like the guy hasn't lost since the fucking AJ fight, for fuck's sake. That was 2014? Like it's been 6 years since this guy's taken an L? Like it's been a while. Andy Ruiz just took one, and he's switching camps. Andy Ruiz needs to go fight like a Robert Hellenius, a Chris Areola, like someone like that. Dylan Whyte needs to face somebody that is also in the top, that is undefeated, right? Not undefeated, but is on a winning streak. Somebody that is surging as well. Like if I'm Dylan Whyte, I'll be honest, I'm fucking waiting. I'm waiting for the big fight. Or maybe an Usyk. Maybe you take an Usyk fight.
I think that's a better fight, but I think he loses both. Who would you pick, Ruiz or Dylan Whyte?
Right now? Still, I'll probably pick Dylan Whyte, even though Andy Ruiz is most likely with Eddie Reneso right now and training with them, and that's a super camp. And everyone knows that listens to the show. I think very, very highly of that camp, and the evolution of everyone within that camp and what we've seen. But dude, you're coming off an L. You were partying so much. Now a layoff as well. Like the deck is literally stacked against Andy Ruiz right now.
It is, but I don't think I think Ruiz's skills are good enough. His speed is too much. Like even if he's not 100% of himself, even if Reynoso hasn't got him, banging on all cylinders, he's still good enough to beat Dillian Whyte. And
I don't know about
I mean, maybe not, right? Dillian Whyte beat Parker, and Parker beat Ruiz. So, I mean, logically that makes sense. I just look at their skill set and I say, come on, Ruiz is a lot better than Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's got the power, right? He's got tremendous power, but Ruiz is a better boxer than him.
Ruiz is a better boxer than him. I think you're right about that. I don't know if Ruiz really puts together his skill set that well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Ruiz, especially... It's hard to tell. Ruiz, like, if you watch him enough, he has been a little bit inconsistent throughout his career. Like, that's not a new thing for him to be inconsistent in terms of performances here and there. But I think he overall struggles with crafting game plans, crafting a idea of here's how I want to put these punches, these combinations together in concert with where I'm at in the ring and the real estate of the ring to get my offense and defense going. Like I don't think he thinks of boxing that way. I don't think
that's where Eddie
Whyte does as well. I don't think Dillian Whyte does as well. But Dillian Whyte has streamlined his game of the last 5 years to be very simple, basic, but highly efficient. Andy Ruiz can be quite inefficient at times and quite ineffective at times. And that's where maybe right now, even if they were their best, Dillian Whyte could beat him. If they're their best, I pick Andy Ruiz because he's the better boxer. But again, with all these X factors against Andy Ruiz, no, I can't pick him right now. No way. And I like Andy Ruiz. You know me. I like him a lot. I like Dillian Whyte a lot. I like these heavyweights a lot. But Andy Ruiz needs a tune-up. I think any fighter that just lost their belts is switching trainers is allowed a tune-up. That's my personal philosophy.
I don't want to go down this path with Dillian Whyte that I went there with Jarrett Hurd, where I looked at him and like, okay, he's not that good. But then he kept winning, and then I overrated him. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dillian Whyte's put together really good wins. He has a bunch of them, one on top of another. I still look at him and I see a flawed fighter.
Well, Gary,
a very flawed fighter. A fighter that can be outboxed easily by a fast boxer.
I'll put it this way. I think his flaws are far more manageable with the current crop of heavyweights
than Hurds was.
That's
true.
And plus, 154, like we always talk about, that is a fucking murderer's row right there. All killers in the top 10. The top 10 of heavyweight, ton of name value, but they're all sort of deeply flawed, right? Like deeply flawed. Deontay Wilder was a champion for fucking 5 years. He was one of the most flawed fighters in the top 10, technically speaking.
I see what you're saying about Whyte, though, where he's very limited, but what he does very well. It's like watching the Last Dance special, seeing what they did with Rodman. It's like, okay, look, this is what you're going to do, and then he can do that as well, and the Bulls are better. I can see what you're saying. Like,
he's a poor man's Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
Or Mike Garcia. No, he's really good going forward and backwards, laterally not so much. Great left hook, great jab, great right cross, great right hook, decent uppercut. Puts it together quite well. Not the best head movement, not the most elusive guy, but offensively, he's a workhorse. He does what is needed in situations, and he's mastered his basics, and that helps. Like with Wilder, him mastering the jab to whatever degree he's mastered the jab, that helped his game a lot at this championship level. If he didn't do that early on, 5 years ago, He couldn't contend with Fury in that first fight, right? He needed that to a degree to shore up all of his other flaws. Dillian Whyte has shored up some of his flaws with his offensive work and streamlining it, so to speak. Tony Horace Grant better than Rodman.
Ho Grant could play, though.
Oh
He's
man,
another one. Hugh Grant had a brother. I think a twin brother. Harvey Grant. No one ever heard of him.
I'm just gonna say this because we were gonna talk about the show, the documentary yesterday because I finally watched all 4 episodes. But we have a lot of boxing to talk about today. But I'm still gonna mention this: Scottie Pippen should have fucking stayed and demanded a trade or whatever, or just not sign that fucking 7-year contract. Scottie Pippen being underpaid that much should be fucking criminal.
Here's the thing, though, right?
Criminal. So sad.
I come to you when you're, I don't know, he's probably came to yours, 25. I said, here's a 7-year contract. You're rich for life. Walk away from it. And I said, like, when the Mets had all those pitchers back in the day, like Harvey and Syndergaard and all the guys, I would give them 10-year contracts right now for $100 million. Now, none of them would sign it, right? But Harvey's out of baseball right now because he got fat. Syndergaard's on his 3rd arm surgery. It's like, why don't I just take the money? I'll be rich for life. I mean, maybe I'm only making half of what I will make, but I'm guaranteeing myself I'm rich for life. Maybe take that. Again, like the Pippen contract, Magic Johnson signed a 25-year contract for $1 million. He's the best point guard ever. He's one of the top 3 players ever. That's underpaid. But it's like, okay, you're rich for life. I mean,
I'll say this. You do that at the end of your career. When you're still in your prime, think about it, he signed that when it was 1990, right? Was when he signed that deal, or 91? Was it after the first championship or before the championship?
Before the first. It was after his first All-Star year, so it was his second. It was before the first championship.
Okay, it was before the first championship. You're about to run into your biggest run ever, and obviously, like to like know that in the foresight of it is impossible. Like you're prophetic if you were to think like, you know what? After this year, we're gonna win 6 championships. We're gonna do it, right? It'd be impossible to guess that. But fuck, man, if he had signed a 3-year deal, right, and like it wasn't that much money still, right, but he's able to renegotiate after a couple of championship wins. Oh, he would have cleaned up, and it's just sad. And I don't blame him because, like, first off, Scottie Pippen comes from a really like rural background, so I don't think he is the best when it comes to like contract law and like knowing that. Like, I'm not even, and I come from a more educated and like well off background. I don't even know contract law and read contracts, understand financial stipulations that well. So like Scottie Pippen, I don't blame him for signing that contract. You have $18 million, 7 years. You see $18 million. And you want to pay off. You want to make sure your dad's taken care of. You know, your mom. You want to make sure everyone's taken care of back home. I get it, man. But fuck, man. How did no one have his back? How was his manager not screaming at him saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. We're good.
So here's a couple of things. A, Scottie Pippen was always grossly overrated. Always. And second, like, his agent, I hope, is a lawyer who understands contract law really well. So that's the one advising him. I don't know who his agent was. I don't know if it was Scott.
Yeah, I don't know who it was either.
But, like, look, you're the, you know, I've been through GA twice, but you're the gambler. I probably would have took the money too, right? Like, do you want to be rich for life? Yes. Then sign this. Okay. Like, may I, you know, like I said, of those 3 pitchers the Mets had, 2 of them wish they could have that contract. Now, DeGrom would laugh at you, right? He's the best pitcher in baseball. He'd laugh at you like, no, I'm not signing that. But for the other 2, it would have paid off. You don't know how your career is going to turn out, especially when you're grossly overrated. Like,
time out. People don't know what we're talking about in the UK.
Okay.
There was a huge documentary that's coming out on ESPN called Last Dance. It's covering Michael Jordan and the Bulls for their last year, and covers a lot of their run, so to speak. But mainly it focuses on their last championship run. So that's what we're talking about right now. And Scottie Pippen was the second best player on that team. And he was, the 7th highest paid player on the team?
Something like that. The 107th and the 120th in the league.
100?
Top 10. I think he's overrated. Top 10 to 15 player in the league, right?
No. Look. He is obviously overrated in terms of like him being compared to Shaq, right? Like everyone compares like Shaq and Kobe to like Jordan and Pippen. It's like
it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing at all. But regardless, Pippen was still grossly underpaid.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think he was that good, right? Like I think he was an all-star player, right? But he wasn't.
He's better than Rodman.
he's better than Rodman. Rodman was more valuable. Like on that team, if I had to draft my own team, if I start off with no one, and you say, who do you want, Pippen or Rodman? I take Pippen. If I start with Michael Jordan, who do I want? I want Rodman.
LFC is the American sports baffle me. Well, I'm sorry, LFC. I do recommend seeing this documentary though. Like if you can watch it online, I know like ESPN's on the UK or wherever you are. You can watch on torrent sites or sites like that. We don't endorse piracy here on MCR. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I do recommend seeing this documentary. Like I'm not a big Jordan guy as a Kobe fan and stan. Naturally, I had to yell at Jordan fans for all my life. Less so now. It was a big thing back in the early 2000s was fucking Jordan and Kobe comparisons. That's lessened over the years. But it's a great documentary. Even if you're not a basketball fan, I think like this is a great just human interest documentary and understanding like human people and how they interacted and everything like that. Like I love all the Rodman segments of the documentary are fantastic. I forget how just fascinating that guy is. Like completely whacked out of his mind. But truly fascinating. Like he's like Ricky Williams and Kanye West rolled into one and add a ton of cocaine to the mix.
Which
and
is
it's fantastic.
Because when he came up to with the Pistons as a rookie and stuff, they said when they used to go to the nightclubs, he would order milk.
Yeah, he wasn't a drinker. He didn't drink back then.
What happened? It's like some Josh Hamilton stuff. Like what happened?
It's like Jordan said, I don't know if it's true though, but he said the traveling cocaine circus, which was the Bulls when Jordan was drafted to them, were called that because apparently they were just traveling around with cocaine and doing parties all the time because they sucked. And it was the
80s, yeah.
It was the 80s. And they're in like 84, prime 80s too. He said he doesn't do it. He didn't do it then, and eventually obviously had alcoholism problem and went to rehab and everything like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't. And then let's say like 5 years down the line, some injuries and stuff, you got money now, things change. I wouldn't be surprised at that. Like Robin being a straight lace, like all of his like first few years with the Pistons, and then having just I don't know what happened. Maybe acid. I don't know. It has to be some sort of drug. Maybe PCP. I don't know. All the drugs I've taken, that it does not explain Dennis Rodman per se. So I don't know what he took. Maybe like Quaaludes, because like I wasn't around for that era. Like, could that make you?
I don't even know what Quaaludes do to you.
I saw Wolf on Wall Street. Like that's all. Like
okay.
That's my knowledge of Quaaludes per se. Like, anyways, I bet the listeners don't give a shit about this. Digressing. Scott Brown in the chat. He, speaking of me, only endorses porn piracy. First off, you don't even need a pirate porn anymore. It's just Pornhub, dude. They do it for you. It's great. But digressing. Where we're at. Oh, Spence, speaking of like crazy lifestyles, great segue. Spence kind of admitting that he was like spiraling out of control. Quote, I was taking a lot of stuff for granted, heading towards self-destruction. Obviously going into his infamous car crash now and everything. He's coming on sort of speaking about how he was sort of falling into that lifestyle, so to speak. Gary, thoughts on this at all? I mean, I don't have a ton of thoughts on this. My only thought is I hope Spence is healthy and fine now. Yeah, that's all I'm thinking about, to be quite honest.
I've heard from people who know him that not really much has changed. Like he knows that he did bad, but he's surrounded himself with nothing but yes men, largely. And you know how like boxing, you don't have teammates to bring you down. You surround yourself with your friends. You're the best champ. You're the best champ. You're the best. It's different. And I hope so. I've heard that he's still out partying. He's still out living his life. I don't know. I hope he gets it together. I hope it's not true. I don't know. But he's kind of a star here in Dallas. Like he doesn't really go under the radar if he's out partying every night. Like about it.
Here's the thing. Earl Spence might be like a John Jones. And he's an MMA fighter for those that don't know MMA or UFC. He's a UFC champion, former UFC champion, or I don't know if he's a UFC champion anymore after his last legal issue. But digressing, he was somebody that like had cocaine issues, had runs with the law, like he had issues, right? Far more so than Spence, I would say. Far more so, closer to the Broner level of issues, right? But the dude's still the greatest of all time in MMA. like still technically like he has a loss on his record, but that's because he got disqualified for throwing an illegal elbow.
A Roy Jones Jr. loss.
You know, like one of those, right? Like he is still fantastic at now a mid-30s, and he was champion at 22. Like he hasn't really lost since then. He hasn't lost in over a decade. The cocaine, the alcohol issues. I mean, he just got pulled over for a DUI and put on house arrest for being drunk and firing off his pistol in Albuquerque. I was gonna say El Paso. Thank you, Albuquerque. So like is Spence one of those guys like kind of like a Jordan to a degree, right? Like Jordan was having massive drinking issues in his championship run. It doesn't really get talked about in this documentary. Sad, but that's just a fact. He did have gambling. He did have drinking issues during this run. The flu game, infamously, right? Wasn't the flu.
Was it poison pizza?
Is Spence one of those guys that rarely enough he can have this unfortunately crazy lifestyle outside the ring, but still be fantastic as an athlete? And not saying that's good. I'm not endorsing that. I'm not endorsing John Jones, not endorsing Michael Jordan doing those things, but I'm just saying some guys can still do it, and it's weird. Like they can have those moments of alcoholism issues or whatever, but they can still perform. Is Spence on that level? Because obviously he's been performing in these last few years quite well, and I think it would be safe to assume if he's having issues now post-accidents, he had issues before the accident that he's admitting to. He had issues during the Porter fight, issues during the Brooks fight. Like he was drinking, going out, partying for a long time, but he was still out there kicking ass. Like it's hard, like for Spence internally speaking, right? How does he check his own behavior when he's still out there kicking ass and still the best in the world? And the only thing that's really affecting him is maybe getting into a car accident, right? Like if he's not driving anymore, is he fine? Can he go to clubs? And like it, you know what I mean, Gary? Like can he still party, so to speak, as long as he's safe about it?
I mean, I don't know. That does he have some kind of addiction to it? I don't know. I mean, look, I hope the guy's okay. He's on the wall, obviously. There he is up top.
And plus, I mean, first off, I've talked to him a few times, right? I assume you have probably
many times. Yeah.
The guy is one of the very few very nice people in this sport, right? Like he seems approachable, he seems pleasant. Like if you see him around his kids, he seems like an awesome dad. Like you see him around his friends, he seems like a cool guy. Like he doesn't give you any impression that he's somebody to be worried about in any way. Like a Broner, if you are around Broner, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh my God."
It's not, but
of course, the guy's in legal issues.
That's the thing. He's not going to get arrested. He's not going to get shot. He's not going to, get caught beating up women or with prostitutes or anything like that. It's just like this partying thing isn't a problem, right? Like it's the same thing with Omar Figueroa. Great guy, nice guy. He's got a problem. He likes drinking and he likes ladies a little bit too much, and he's always, you know what I'm saying? It's
his drinking affects his in-ring performance,
right?
And that's a big difference.
Spencer so far hasn't,
that we know of. I mean, he's had great fights and has looked great during this, so it's hard. I mean, as far as I know, the stories I've heard have never been malicious in any sense. It's always been just he's out partying, he's out drinking, right. He's out at the club with his friends, and I think that could be fine if you're still training, if you're not driving. There's a certain level to it. If you're still performing well, then I don't have an inherent issue with it if you're taking those safety precautions. Now, if he's not, if he's still out there drinking and driving, if he's still out there doing too much, right, getting into other drugs, maybe that's where maybe it's a concern, right? If you're out there smoking weed, drinking with your buddies, I don't give a shit about that, right? Like that's not my concern, as long as you go and perform at the end, right? As long as it doesn't affect your actual athletic ability. I hope Spence is fine, and I hope he gets his life in order, and I hope whatever that in order looks like is safe. Because if it is still going out and drinking a little bit, that's fine. I think maybe you disagree with me on that, Gary. I don't know.
No, I mean, would it be better if he lived like Floyd Mayweather and didn't drink at all?
Of course,
that'd be ideal. But I'm not saying like unless you live like Mother Teresa, you're gonna have a bust of a career. It would be better Now, does everyone who drink turn into Josh Hamilton? No, right?
It's hard. It's hard to gauge. I can't wait to see Spence again, to be quite honest. There's another article out there saying that, or he was interviewed, I think, with Ray Flores, right? Talking about how he still can't spar yet because he has to get his I forget what it's called. Yeah, his teeth all fixed again or whatever.
Shouldn't that be a constant reminder that you can't work right now because of a decision that you made, and maybe you should stop making that decision?
But if that decision is mine is drinking and driving, that in tandem, and he stops that and just takes cabs or Ubers, or he has a DD, he pays his buddy to drive him around.
Hire a DD then. Seriously, hire a DD. Don't drive anymore. I know you have that Ferrari, and that looked like a lot of fun to drive. But if you're going to drink, just hire. I mean, right? If you pay someone $100,000 a year, that's nothing to you. I'm sure someone would love to be paid $100,000 a year to drive you around Dallas. So just do it.
Shout out to Jay Prodigy in the chat, long-time listener. I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. I know you're a fan of both sports, so I think you understand this. It's weird the tone of this conversation about Spence because it reminds me so much of John Jones not too long ago. Maybe now it's 9 years ago now, so maybe that's different. It was a long time ago. But digressing, the demand was always, yo, Jones, just get a driver. Like, it seems to be a reoccurring issue of you getting behind the wheel under the influence. And I'm assuming here, I'm making some armchair psychology thoughts here. I think a reason why John Jones has never done that is an ego thing. Like, athletes, top level athletes, the best in the world, their ego is something else. Like, it's not human. And I wonder if that's a mental hurdle that they have to get over to hire somebody to drive them around. I bet that maybe feels a little bit emasculating, maybe whatever it is, like the ego, the chip on their shoulder. No, I don't need a driver. I'm good. That plays into it because of how athletes think. That's bullshit. Gotta get over that. And Spence get a driver. Because hopefully that's just all it is. That you just, your big issue is you just can't drink and drive, dude. And guess what? No one should. So Uber, taxi, hire a friend. Wiz Khalifa has a buddy that he pays yearly to roll his joints for him. That's his job.
How did you get that job? My guidance counselor never told me about that
job.
Dude,
I am so jealous. I remember back in college, me and my buddies would always have these deals like, hey, if one of us made it big, you would be that guy for me. I'll pay you to just roll the weed for me, okay? That's all we need. But I mean, Spence is making good money. He can pay someone, $40,000 a year to drive him around. Doesn't need to be $100,000. That's probably a little bit too much.
But what the point was that he wouldn't even feel it. You know what I'm saying? If it was $100,000,
you're right.
He wouldn't feel it. Wouldn't even know it was gone.
You're absolutely right. Scott Brown saying, what about Kovalev? Kovalev needs to probably be put in prison.
Yeah. I mean,
Kovalev's issues aren't comparable to Spence because Spence didn't beat a woman, allegedly. Instantly, it's just a different conversation.
I used to always defend Tank Davis. I would say, what did Tank Davis really do? He smacked his friend in the face at his boxing gym. Big deal. He got in some trouble party. He got drunk. Big deal. And then the video came out. Okay, now he's crossed the line.
That's a big deal. Now it's a big deal. You being drunk in a video at a club and trying to dance and people clowning you, that has never bothered me. Broner doing that stuff, that doesn't bother me. The fact that he goes and gets shot at, goes and hits up underage women, that's issues for Broner, right? Partying and drinking, people do that, man. I partied and drink for large portions of my life. Didn't make me a bad person. It's just that's not what it is. I'm a big believer that the person's a little bit more at fault than the substance for their behavior, to be quite honest. But digressing. Let's move on. Speaking of Gervonta Davis, let's see if anything else to say about
No.
All right. Leonard Elby is saying that Gervonta Davis, Leo Santa Cruz will beat stage post-pandemic. And I'm going to assume next year at the earliest, right? Because post-pandemic in my mind is really post this shit. not in this haphazard with some fans 6 feet apart in attendance. No, they're going to wait till they can put 20,000 people in a stadium for this fight. And I also think this is now the second big fight we've heard, other than maybe Fury Wilder, is being talked about. This is not happening under this paradigm. Like, this is not happening in this system right now. We're going to wait to put this one on until things are truly back to normal again. And I wonder how long it's going to take to actually get some of these really good fights. Gary, thoughts on Gervonta Davis, Leo Santa Cruz not being staged during this pandemic at all?
Is this that big of a ticket draw, though? Like, is it picking in that big of a gate? Yeah? All right.
I would think so.
I thought this was a good fight like that. Like, it would do a good TV number.
I think this does a very decent, healthy gate. First off, Leo Santa Cruz has always done a pretty decent number in LA. Gervonta Davis has always done a good number wherever he's at, whether it's Baltimore or ATL. The last time he fought, he always done decent attendance.
But I'm thinking this would be a West Coast fight, right?
Yes. But I think Gervonta Davis can absolutely draw in LA.
Do you? All right. I think okay.
Yeah.
Then if this does a good gate, then I guess push it off until you can. To me, as I heard that said it's a good TV fight, does a good TV number, but that probably doesn't kill at the gate. But if you're saying it does a great gate number, then
I think this could easily do, let's say, like 13 to 15,000 people at Staples and make a healthy 7-figure gate.
Put a Rigo fight on. Rigo, do a good TV number. Won't do a gate. Put a Rigo fight in an empty arena.
Yeah, you could definitely do that.
You know what I'm saying? Laura, something like that. Guys who draw a crowd. I mean, draw a viewership number, but don't really draw a crowd.
Speaking of that to a degree, like, what about like a Donero Bali fight? Because that fight was on the line. That fight was ordered. Last time I checked, that fight was gonna happen before things were canceled. Could that fight be easily rescheduled and happen during this? Like those lower weight class fights?
Lower weight class fight I think would be great because especially Donaire, people like to watch Donaire. I don't know that he's a ticket seller. Even when he was in his prime, his first prime 10 years ago, he wasn't really a ticket seller. So I think that's a great fight. It's a good fight, an entertaining fight. It's a fan friendly fight, and it's not a big ticket seller. So I think that's a perfect fight to put inside in an empty arena.
I agree. Tony Yayo on the chat, you're gonna like this comment. Replacing sugar in my diet feels so much better. Raw honey is my go-to sweetener.
There you go. You can get monk toast sweetener, which is a plant, and it just crumbles up like sugar, and it's no calories, no carbs. But honey's okay. Once you have sugar again, like I got a Starbucks coffee the other day, and they put sugar in it. Like you take a sip of it, and you're like, whoa, what? Yeah. Whatever sweetener they put in it, like I just get cream in my coffee. Whatever they put in it had sugar in it. It's like as soon as you taste it, it's like your mouth is like, whoa, what is that? But yeah, I haven't had any sugar in about a year and a half.
If I had self-control, I would do that. I don't have self-control.
It's between that and having 3 seizures a day, so I went with that.
Yeah, I don't think Tony has that though. Like Tony is probably just doing it to be healthy, or to not get sick from the coronavirus. Yo, Tony, please tell me, Tony, that you're doing this because Gary said it. First off, he's been saying it since he's been on the show that to not eat sugar when you're sick, and B, you're doing it in tandem for that because of the coronavirus. Please tell me that, Tony. That would make my day.
Just to let you know, Tony, it's not preventative care. It won't prevent you. It just won't survive as long. It's not going to stop you, right?
It seems like there's some conversation in the chat about, because we mentioned Kovalev, so now people are talking about Ward Kovalev. Do you think Kovalev was robbed in the first fight?
No, I had it the same way the judge said. I had Ward was a 114, 113.
Yeah, I did too. I was in attendance though. I remember, God, I had somebody next to me that was like a huge Ward fan, and he had Ward, I think, winning 10 rounds.
Okay, that's ridiculous. But like I was watching it.
It was.
I was texting back and forth with my brother like every couple of rounds, right? And then he asked me how I had it. I said 114, 113. I'm like, how did you have it? He's like, oh, you're way off. I'm like, how did you have it? He's like, 114, 113 Kovalev. I'm like, yeah, we have completely different scorecards.
Completely different.
1 round. Yeah.
These are nothing alike at all. Yeah, that fight. I think a lot of people thought that was a robbery, in my opinion. But yes, you can think that Kovalev.
You can, because the rounds Kovalev won, he won big, but it doesn't matter. He got the 110-8 round. But like a lot of the after the knockdown rounds, like 6, 7, 8, like Ward did a little bit more. And if I do a little bit more than you, that's a 10-9 round for me. And I thought that's the way it was. Like if you just look at it as like one big pie, yeah, Kovalev's pie looks better. But when you break it down into 12 slices, like Ward's got more good slices than Kovalev does, just by a hair.
Jay in the chat saying robbery is the most overused word in boxing terminology. I would push back on that slightly. I do think it's used too much, that's for sure. I don't think it's the most overused word in the boxing lexicon. Probably bum. Bum is used probably way too much. And that is more categorically wrong than robbery, in my opinion. Maybe I'm off on that, but we call like top 10 fighters bums, guys.
I was gonna go the other way. I say champion is a much overused term.
Oh man, you're spinning now, man. Oh my God, hold on. Let me get some air horns for you. You're right. No, you're 100% right, Gary. You win the show for today, Gary. I'll say that. It's so true. It's so sad. Moving on. Thomas Hauser over at Boxing Scene writing an article updating us on the whole Nevada State Athletic Commission and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. situation. And you guys know I was on this one when it was a big topic and it didn't favor my side. So that's why I stopped talking about it as much. But guys, it's okay now. I fucking won, Gary. Do you know why? Did you read this article?
I did.
It's so good, man. I'm so happy. All right, so I'm going to try to get to the part where it talked about all these different motions of dismissals and temporary restraining orders and all this stuff. But anyway, what happened was that Chavez and Nevada State Athletic Commission were basically counter motioning each other, trying to get this thing either dismissed if you're Nevada side, or if you're Chavez's side, getting this order in place so Nevada can't punish you. The judge finally ruled that the case can be dismissed, which means that the Nevada State Athletic Commission can now punish Chavez for the entire situation that happened with the Jacobs fight. What do we think happens here? And I also want to remind people that I think maybe not people, maybe this was a private conversation between us and the group chat. That remember the Vegas mayor? What's her name?
Goodman.
Something Goodman, right? We were thinking that she's related to Margaret Goodman of Vada. She's not. She's related to Ross Goodman, the lawyer in Las Vegas, who's very prominent. Ross Goldman represented Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Just want to make that connection there. But anyways, digressing. So now, Chavez could be punished, suspended. He's technically now under the jurisdiction of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and Chavez has no protection from them. Do we see them throwing the book at him once they can, so to speak?
After all of this, yeah.
I think they do it too.
I mean, like if you just would have took your punishment and went down quietly, I mean, maybe you got 6 months, But when you raise this kind of fuss, they're gonna throw the book at you. Like you wasted their time, their resources, their money. They're gonna come after you. They don't like it when you make a mockery of their court. They don't.
Yeah,
they don't.
And that's like judges, period. But then you got like the commission. The commissioners have more egos than the judges. Sure, fuck with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, man. They are so malicious when it comes to people they do not like. And
it's more than I don't like you. It's like you made a mockery of our legal system here in Nevada. Like it's not like I don't personally like you. It's like you wasted our time, money, and resources, and you tried to make a mockery of our court system.
Well, they don't like him because of that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And now, because we know the financials of that event that went down in Arizona, it didn't make money at all. They didn't even do $500,000 at the gate. Chavez has no protection anymore.
Why did that bomb so bad at the gate? Like you think it would do decent?
I don't know. That is in my opinion, the weirdest thing that happened last year was that fight being such a bomb in every department. It shouldn't have been. Like on paper, that was one of the fights that Matchroom US had that should have done decent. And it would have done better or something like that at the gate.
Do you think it would have done better had they put it in LA or Nevada? In Vegas?
Potentially. I think Vegas it would have made more money because the casinos would have paid for that fight. I don't think the attendance would have been better.
The gate in Arizona would do good because it's like, how many times does Chavez come to Phoenix? Like, this is probably your only chance to see him. Like, it's not it's not Vegas. He's not going to fight there twice a year. So, like, all the Mexican American fans who were fans of his dad would like, I want to go see him. This is my chance to see him. Like, it was like when De La Hoya fought in El Paso. El Paso doesn't get a bunch of big fights. De La Hoya went there and fought. I don't even remember who he fought. It was one of his mandatories. He did a great number because, like, okay, I get to see De La Hoya. Like, El Paso doesn't usually get these kind of fights. That's why I thought it would do a really good number, and then it largely bombed.
Like I predicted, it's not a big market. Phoenix is not a big market. Like, we think of it as a market because it's a basketball team and a football team and stuff, but like it's not a big market. I've been there. Like, it's not a big metropolitan area at all.
No, it's a fun place to go. There's lots of young people, but no.
Arizona is miserable.
We used to go there for spring training.
I think Arizona's miserable because it's just as hot as New Mexico, but at least New Mexico has the Red Rock. And that shit is fucking beautiful. You get that a little bit in northern Arizona, but like Phoenix doesn't have that. Phoenix is just a fucking white ass desert that's hot as hell. There's nothing to do there except for go to movie theaters or indoors because they have ACs. It's not fun. I hated my time in Arizona when I was there. It was the worst experience ever.
Right.
I wouldn't. Sorry.
What did you do in Arizona?
Arizona is. I'm not going to talk about it. Because I will get made fun of, so I'm not going to talk about it. I talk about it. I'll say it off air to you, Gary. Okay. I won't say it on air because I will get made fun of. I know that. Arizona is like the Southwest West Coast version of Cleveland.
No. Nothing worse than Cleveland.
You all know I'm right, guys. It's okay.
The mistake by the lake.
Double Ice, and did they have any local fighters on? I believe they did. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say they did. But then again, like, that's not the issue. They had like a good attendance number. Then they had like 14,000 people in a 20,000 seater. Like, that's a decent number. The tickets were very cheap. They only made about $400,000 from the revenue from the gate.
Nothing's more shocking than the Carlos Ramirez numbers. Like, he sells like 10,000 tickets.
Jose Ramirez.
Jose, what did I say?
You said Carlos.
Jose Ramirez numbers. That's the most shocking. It's like, wow, he sold like 12,000 tickets. The gate must be great. But it's like, it's 100,000.
It's like 200 grand.
How is that even possible?
That doesn't even pay
$10.
The gate doesn't even pay off Ramirez's purse, guys.
Now I want to go back and look at Terrence Crawford's gate in Omaha when he did all those great numbers. Like, was it that low too?
I know somebody that's an accountant. And I had them check the Matchroom and Queensberry financial information because that's public information, right? We can find that. And it was interesting the comment that person made to me about Queensberry because they said basically like this company is losing money, they're not making money. But if this is all funny money, if this is all just a tax write-off in the sense, and they didn't know how the UK ran stuff, so they couldn't really go on the record for it. But in the US, this could be a huge tax write-off for some of these promoters because it's a loss, so they can claim it as a loss on their tax returns. And on top of it, if you're getting your money from outside sources and you're not the one self-funding it, it's all funny money here. It's monopoly money that you're just passing around in hands. That's all that's happening. I wonder how much of that's going on for some of these shows, to be quite honest. Because some of the financial information that we know just doesn't make sense. These shows aren't making money some of the time. And I would say other than the very big shows, most boxing shows don't make money. in today's age. I might be wrong in that, but I would almost bet.
It's tough. You got to have the right sponsors and stuff, like, because it costs a lot of money to put shows on.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And if you look at a lot of these small promotions, most of them lose money, which is why they do one show and then like 3 years later they'll try another one. You know, it's tough. And I go to a lot of club boxing in Texas and Dallas and San Antonio and Austin and so on. There's only a couple of people who can make any money at it. The rest of it, people, you know, like you'll see all these small promoters try to put a show on, and they do it once and they don't do it again. There's a reason for that. It's because they lost a ton of money.
Double I thought most fights lost money on the gates. If you're not today's age, especially if you don't have the TV money to like subsidize your card, so to speak,
yeah,
it's hard. It's very, very hard. There's a reason why like Showtime struggled post like the Wilder Brazil fight because they had to subsidize that fight, right? It's the same sort of concept, right? Like ESPN has to subsidize Terence Crawford's fights.
And CBS is a little tighter with the pocketbook than the other major companies.
Yeah, definitely. At this point in time, absolutely. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago they weren't, but it's no longer 4 or 5 years ago. But like Terence Crawford isn't making, in my opinion, ESPN $3+ million every time he fights. He's not. So they have to subsidize that, in my opinion. I would not be surprised how much boxing is used as a tax write-off to some degree, or it's just a loss. It's a loss leader for these networks, and they don't care. I could absolutely see that. You know, we talk about DAZN, how much money they invest in boxing and what their return is. The loss leader. They're not getting that money back, but they might get it down the line because they can buy other properties later and they already have a brand recognition of some sort. Like that's the thought process. But digressing. Moving on. British Boxing Board Control today issued today meaning today. Sort of stipulating all of the issues or requirements to have events going forward. Hope is to be back in July, behind closed doors, at least at first. Maximum, I think this is interesting, maximum of 5 fights per event. All involved must be tested. I like that. Strict social distancing and pre-event quarantine. I wish there was a post-fight quarantine as well, but I think a pre-event quarantine is good at this point. I think overall, the British Boxing Board Control has, if companies are going to force their hand, so to speak, and push on through this pandemic, these seem like good guidelines to have. Maybe not perfect, but it's pretty fucking close. Gary, thoughts?
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I mean, I don't have any concerns about. I don't have any problems with it. My only concern is like even like the weigh-in. I don't know if weigh-ins in the UK are public events, but like in the US, they're open to the public, so anyone can just walk in. How would you even have a weigh-in? Like usually, if it's at a restaurant or a dining hall or something like that, if you have 5 fights, that's 10 camps. Even if it's just fighter and 1 second, that's 20 people right there. Plus, you have the doctor, you have to have the commission, you have to have everyone who has to sign off on everything. And then people have to be able to witness it, right? It has to be open to the public. How do you?
I think they close them to the public. Even though technically it's a, what's the terminology? It's a government event, so it's automatically open to the public, right? Like that's, like for the UFC, they and MMA, they have private real weigh-ins.
Yeah,
and they have the weigh-ins, right? But the real ones are still technically open to the public. They just don't advertise it. So randomly, you will get a fan that tracks down where these events are because they call the commission. The commission has to tell them where the events are. Right. I wonder if there is some sort of legal loophole to where, like in times like this, they can close them from the public.
What I was thinking was the event holding it can just shut their door at a certain amount of people or whatever number like this. Then they can just shut their doors. I had to shut my doors for health reasons. That was the I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the exact nature of that. But I would say this: I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue. Stuff like that. I think the only issue is like, let's say well, depending how long this pre-event quarantine is, I didn't read it entirely, but if it's 14 days beforehand,
yeah,
then theoretically, I mean, you could do no post-fight or post-event, excuse me, but you're still risking a process of somebody either testing false negative and coming into an event, because that's possible, especially right now with a lot of these rapid tests that are not foolproof right now that are happening.
I think they're hoping
LA open up. I forget where, but they're trying to do a bunch of free testing right now. But the testing rate on that isn't that high in terms of success rate, in terms of comparative to the full swab down your nose all the way back to your brain system. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do here and how foolproof it is. Because the second something happens, does this all go away? Right? Let's say if something happens at one of these shows, somebody gets sick afterwards, and not even dies, like they just get sick. Does the British Boxing Board Control come in and say, nope, all of these are shut down now? Because now this system is not working. Is that possible? It has to be possible. And what happens when that does happen? Because most likely in the US, we're getting a bunch of shows in Florida. In the UK, they're pushing on stuff in July. Like, I don't see how we don't have at least one person getting infected in these areas. It just doesn't make sense to me. Especially you have people flying in, driving in to have fights. It just doesn't make sense to me to a degree. Now, again, if you have a little bit more parameters and requirements, maybe you can do it. But still, I just feel like it's such a huge risk.
I think the goal is to get the testing a little more accurate and try to iron out the kinks by the time we're ready to go live with the testing. Because right now, like, it's not like 100% accurate right now. So there's false positives and false negatives. So I think, the goal would be for the commission to iron that problem out, so we don't have to have a problem of a false negative or a false positive.
Agreed.
Down the road.
Agreed. Dwayne in the chat saying, Matt, Gary, will close to the public fights even be profitable? Depending on the fights, of course. Depends what you define as profitable. I absolutely can see the network subsidizing these fights. And we talked about, I think, on another show, maybe a show or two ago, about Crawford saying he doesn't want to fight if there's no fans because he gets paid a percentage from the gate revenue, obviously, right? What would have to happen then is the ESPN, the respective network to ever fight or fighter we're talking about, would have to step in and say, here's the lump sum of money that you would have got at the gate in theory. And I'm assuming with all of their accountants and financial experts there, they can probably have some sort of system to theorize, and this is the number that Crawford versus X fighter would make at this venue. We can sort of pretty well hypothesize that number. And then the network has to pay that number to the promoter and the fighter. That's what would have to happen for it to be profitable. The network would take a larger hit, but the networks might need to do that because ESPN is down 40%. That's huge.
Which is so my thought was, like, my answer to that was yes, and here's how they make it profitable. You take your fighters. So use their premier fighters, right? Lomachenko. We're going to keep him busy. We're going to throw him one fight against an absolute tune-up. So I pay Lomachenko a little less than I typically do because he's taking a tune-up, and I can pay the tune-up pennies, right? And if he doesn't want to take, I just go down the line until I find someone who will take a $50,000 person to fight Lomachenko. I'll get it eventually, right? I just have to keep going down the line. So I pay both guys a little short money. I pay the B-side a lot short money until I find someone who takes it. And then I pay Lomachenko a little short of what I usually pay. But look who you're fighting. Like, this is just a stay busy fight. And so you kind of cut your expenses. And, okay, so we lost that much money by not having a gate, but you also paid our fighters less. And the numbers on television will be the same because you're getting the boxing heads to watch it because we haven't had boxing in so long. So I think there's a way that you can make this profitable. It's just like you're not going to love the product, but you're still going to watch it.
Scott Brown saying nobody's going to want to advertise during tune-ups. I don't think that's the issue at all, to be quite honest. The advertisers for ESPN have no content to put their advertisements on right now. So any live sports would be beneficial right now.
The numbers will look.
And maybe Scott Brown doesn't know this, and that's fine. But live sports are still the premium content that advertisers want to put their product on, because people watch that shit live most of the time, and that means they're going to watch commercials. So that's why no matter what, they are still desirable at this point in time, and especially at this point in time. Maybe if basketball and football was also going, you're right that the network would want these tune-ups, but the network is down 40%. They're going to take whatever they can get right now in terms of live sports.
That's what I'm saying. Like, give me an absolute tune-up at 135. Give me an absolute tomato can that Lomachenko could fight. I want to make a point here. Give me a name that he should just absolutely roll over.
Jason Velez.
Okay, fine. Jason Velez, good. Lomachenko versus Jason Velez. There's been no boxing for 3 months now, 4 months now. That's on ESPN. You gonna watch it? Yeah, watch it. You're not gonna love it, right? You're not gonna say, "Oh, this is the fight I've been waiting for," but you're gonna watch it, and the boxing community is gonna watch it.
It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if Scott Brown or I watch it. That is live sports,
right?
And the network needs live sports because it's down 40%. Showing replays of sports does not get you views.
Nope.
Live sports does.
It does get you views for me, but that's
you can show as many Ali fights as you want, ESPN. You're never going to do above 600,000 viewers. Or you're never going to do above a certain amount because it's an old fight. 1 billion plus people have already seen those fights. You need live fights. You need live content. Like that. There's just something about that as well. And plus, I'm telling you, the advertisers are going to love that because it's live sports regardless. And advertisers are going to want to put their product on live sports regardless of the live sport right now compared to old content, digital content, whatever it may be. Live sports is still the number one thing advertisers are looking for. Gary, any other thoughts on this?
No.
Israel Madrimov is our last boxing topic before we go to the UFC topic and shit on them for a second. Israel Madrimov is talking about Jason Rosario and saying that he wants to fight him next. I want to remind people that Israel Madrimov is 5-0, has not faced anyone within the top 20. Gary, why? Why is he thinking this? Why are certain fans, A, thinking that he can beat Rosario, and C, thinking that like this is acceptable? Like, do people forget?
I'm just going to call Rosario the 154-pound Buster Douglas.
He's not that.
I don't know. We'll see.
He's proven. He is proven. He might not be the best guy in the division, but he's clearly a proven top 10 commodity.
I think there's a reason why they want to fight him is because they don't think he's very good. Now, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're all wrong, and maybe he ends up being a legitimate top 3 guy in the division for a long time. But I don't think he's viewed that way in that division. I think he's the guy you can go get the belt off of that guy.
Oh shit! My
yeah, you're freezing up a little bit.
I'm back.
Again, Madrimov looks like he's got a lot of talent, but he's fought nobody. He's fought absolutely nobody. So, no. Do I think Madrimov's ready for that fight? No, but I think they're hedging that on. This guy's not good. This guy's not that good. And maybe he is. Maybe he's matched right, but defensively in the past he's had a lot of holes. And Madrimov something else can crack. So
he can crack against guys that we've never heard of.
Fair enough.
Rosario went in there against the unified champion and washed him, dominated, trashed him, drug him across the mud, and slapped him upside the head.
He beat him up better than J-Rock beat up Hurd.
I mean, it was a complete ass beating.
After the first round, it was a one-sided beatdown, which was like shocking. Yeah.
And it was his first fight on short notice. It was his first fight with the full camp. He's 24, 25 years old now. Yeah, Rosario's a legit top 5, top 10 talent. He's proven that. Madrimov hasn't fought anyone we've heard of. Anyone. And people think he's the next fucking god. I don't get it. Like, I get like there's a lot of Eastern European talented fighters coming now. I get that. But Jesus Christ, fanboys and hipsters. Like, I'm the hipster. Like, slow your roll, guys. Come on. Like, we've seen highly touted prospects in this division get iced before they've been tested. It's not uncommon for that to happen. Have him be tested. The guy is 5-0. Hasn't faced anyone of note. Like, not all these guys are Lomachenko people. And even then, Loma lost the fucking fight. So, like, stop. Like, stop. Please, people, please. I like Madrimov, but like the hipsters are making me want to hate Madrimov. Okay? I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a cynical Scrooge, but like the sycophantic fanboy out there that's like Madrimov can beat all these guys and go up to 160 and beat Canelo. Like, those motherfuckers are crazy.
I'm looking at Madrimov right now, his opponents. The best name on his resume is Alejandro Barrera, who was an opponent used for Errol Spence at 147, when Errol Spence was, 10, 12 fights into his career. Like, guys, I like Madrimov too. I think he's good, but like, can we just chill on that a little bit? Like, let him beat someone of note first.
Yo, Patrick Teixeira would whoop Madrimov's ass right now.
At this point, he'd probably too much for him. I mean, Teixeira's got skills and he's experienced. Madrimov's fought nobody who's offered him any resistance.
It's just like, people think like Haney is like now the Mayweather. It's like, no, he hasn't fought anyone yet. Like,
he really hasn't fought anybody.
Like, let's just have these people fight people, and then we can see how good they are. If you haven't fought anyone of note, then how can I tell that you're of note? It's just simple. I can see that you have skill. I can see that you're a highly touted prospect, but it doesn't even mean pick you to beat Jason Rosario, who's now the unified champion of the division. Fuck out of here. You think I'm that crazy? I don't smoke that much weed, guys. Come on. Any other thoughts on boxing, Gary, before we talk about this UFC Endeavor situation?
No, I'm actually interested in this one. So let's get to that.
So Endeavor, the parent company of UFC, and this article is from the New York Post, by the way. They are seeking $250 million in sort of a way to alleviate the losses they've taken in this pandemic. For those who don't know, Endeavor is one of the biggest Hollywood conglomerates around. It originally started out as a talent agency. Ari Emanuel, the owner of Endeavor, inspired the show Entourage, for those that maybe don't know. And Ari Gold, that character, is inspired by Endeavor, which was previously called William Morris Endeavor, and Ari Emanuel. But digressing, originally, Endeavor being the owners of the UFC, they were hoping for a $150 million dividend from the UFC this year. That's not happening now. So over half of the money that's sort of they're looking for now, in theory, could come from the UFC if they keep putting on shows. So, Gary, do you think that Endeavor / UFC's financial struggles this year is the direct reason why we see them trying to push through every single legislative body around to make it happen?
I also think water is wet, the sky is blue. Yes, that's the reason. Absolutely.
Are you shocked by this? That they're this concerned, that they're looking for this much money, that the UFC's dividend was that them not having it is so much of a hole in the company's financial health? Is this shocking at all to you, or is this pretty on par for what's going to happen around a lot of corporations?
Shocking to me is how much trouble they're in such a relative small amount of time.
Yes.
That's what's shocking to me, is that they're in that much fiscal trouble in
2 months,
6 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah. Like, wow. It's like the airlines. Like, they spend all their money on buying their own stock back, which is like spending all of your money on your own garage sale. Or like, it's like this. And that used to be illegal up until Reagan and somewhere in the 80s, right? Because it's insane. It's completely fraud and price manipulation. Like, it's insane, right? And then, as soon as something happens, they have no money. Well, you spent 92 or 95% of your money on buying your own stock back. Like, think about the illogic in that. Like, let's say you have $100 in the bank. You take $95 out, go out to your garage sale, and spend all the money at your own garage. It's like, what? Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And say, look how much our price went up. Yeah, because you've manipulated the price. It is what it is. But, like, I don't know. Like, so a company that big and that powerful now has no money seems really, really weird and out of place to me. I don't know what happened to Matt. But I'm really interested in this. It's boy, they've mismanaged some money if they're this broke this quickly.
I know they had a lot of debt. I forget the number. I just closed out the article, so I don't have the exact number. But I know they took on a lot of debt, like right before this pandemic hit. And I think it's sort of a compounding factor here. But then again, like it is quite shocking how fast they are sort of in the hole, and how fast they're trying to push through, sort of, business as usual, to use the Dana White line, to make money again and to get this $150 million dividend back because they clearly desperately need it. It's again shocking how fast this is and how obvious and blatant the sort of greed is by everyone involved here. And that's why we're getting a fight island. But then again, like, think about this. If you're in the hole financially, right? Wouldn't the last thing to do is to buy or rent out an entire private island and build facilities and, an entire like semi arena? Like wouldn't, in theory, like it'd be more cost effective to just sort of have your four lows, which they had, and hunker down and wait out the storm, so to speak? Like, wouldn't that be better than trying to have a fight island?
I was intrigued by the fight island idea. Now, I didn't know that they were in a ton of financial trouble. That's probably not the smartest investment because it seems like a roll of the dice. It seemed like wildcatting at best, but I was intrigued by the idea.
Gary, if you came up to me and you were like $100,000 in debt and you're like, yo, I'm gonna go buy a house right now. Like, Gary, what are you doing? Like, get some debt you have to pay off first before you go buy a house, bro. Like, this is common sense here. And Endeavor's like, we're $250 million in the hole. Let's go buy an island. We're going to spend all the money to fly dozens and dozens of people in to have fight cards. Like, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think it's total bullshit. That never happened.
It's like when they changed the bankruptcy laws a bunch of years ago, and they made it harder for people to declare bankruptcy. It's like, all right, just go out and buy a new washer and dryer and television. Like, that should be enough debt that they let you declare bankruptcy. I don't know. Maybe they're. I don't know. I mean, if you're in this much financial trouble, I don't know how buying an island on a whim to make a whole lot of economic sense, but.
So great. Guys, I love combat sports so much. I hope people understand, like, I shit on boxing and MMA a lot because there's a lot of things wrong with our sports. But oh my God, we get stories like these. And they're just great. It's straight out of Bloodsport with John Van Clandam. Like, it's straight out of a movie. And I love it. Like, this is a 1984 movie that's been somehow reimposed by the aliens in 2020. Like, we have a reality TV show president, the plague, right? And the Great Depression. Like, it's just hitting like all the marks of just like a great B-level movie. Like you replace Jack Nicholson with Donald Trump in When Mars Attacks. It's basically the same movie. It's basically 2020. Gary, do you know that movie I'm talking about?
I know the movie. I've never seen it.
You've never seen that movie? Oh my God. Gary, you guys see that movie?
I've never seen a lot of movies like a lot of people have seen.
That movie is B-movie garbage, but like in the highest order.
Well, how would you rate Howard the Duck as B-movie garbage?
Ooh.
That's a great movie.
I do like Howard the Duck.
Good. You're the only person who admits that.
No, I think Howard the Duck, it's not like...
That thing's won like every single Razzie.
It's a good movie in the same way like Tremors is a good movie.
I never saw Tremors either.
What?
Why? Like, if someone said I never saw Howard the Duck, I'd say that's probably pretty normal. Like, why is it amazing that I never saw Tremors?
Tremors is Kevin Bacon's best movie.
I never saw it.
And first off, Netflix has all of them, all the sequels. It has Tremors. I think they still do it. I think they still have those movies. Gary, go watch Tremors.
Is it terrible? Like, if you make me sit through a 2-hour terrible movie, I'm going to be in a cranky mood.
It's probably an hour and a half.
All right.
And it is so good. It is a great 90s B movie. Like, it's not 80s, it's 90s, right? There's a difference, clear difference.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And the monster and it's a great, like, do you remember the movie? I forget the name of it. I think Michael J. Fox was in it. I might be wrong about that. It was a movie about like cars and like toasters come to life and killing you. Do you remember this movie?
I think so.
Right? Okay.
I
God, what's the name of that fucking movie, man? I had a girlfriend back in high school that was like super into that movie. Like that was her like Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like that was her like thing that she like fangirled out. So we watched that all the time. Fuck, what's the name of the movie? But it's like that. It's completely ridiculous. You can tell probably when they were making it, they were trying to be serious, but it's not. It's not at all, and it's perfection. Yeah, you should go watch that movie. LFC is saying The Room is the best, worst movie. I think The Room is grossly overrated. I'll be honest. Like, The Room has all the hype of like, oh, it's the best, worst movie of all time. It's just a bad movie. There's no redeeming qualities of that movie at all.
What about The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, the original? Everyone hates that. Love that movie.
No, that's a great movie.
Okay, good.
That's fantastic. But I'm like, I love Punisher. Like, I'm a comic book nerd, right? It's like Punisher is one of my top like 5 superheroes, air quotes, anti-villain, anti-hero. But anyways, like I love even like what's the dude's name? Thomas Jane. Right? That's the actor's name, and with John Travolta, right? I like that movie too. I like the other one they did after that, Punisher Warzone. With what's that dude's name? God, he's like in all the movies, but we never know his name. That movie is awesome too, to a degree, for what it is. You know, I like shitty movies. I'm okay with watching a shitty movie and appreciating it for what it is. I'm a stoner, Gary. So like Half Baked is like the golden chalice for me. And that movie's bad. Like you can't say Half Baked's a good movie. It's a great stoner movie. And that's the difference, right? It's like a lot of bad, awful movies just turn into stoner movies for me, to be quite honest. But digressing, Gary, anything else you want to talk about on today's show, man? This is gonna be it, I think.
No more questions in the chat.
No more questions in the chat. Not that I can see. I hope see you tear me apart, Lisa. Yes, there are some good lines from that movie, but The Room is overrated. It's not the greatest bad movie of all time. That's not true. Oh, and Heath Farley, thank you, saying Emilio Estevez was in that movie, and he also can't remember the name of the movie. God, what is that movie? That's going to bother me now. But digressing, shout out to Emilio Estevez, because if I forget what YouTube outlet he did this with, we did an interview like a year ago, and he was talking about how the story behind him having his actual name and his dad and Charlie Sheen being his brother, those who don't know, not having their actual name. Fascinating story, actually. It's a quick story, but for those that want to check it out, type in Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen last name. I think you can just type that in on YouTube and find it. Actually, really interesting, and I've gained some respect for Emilio Estevez and the entire family. But digressing, Gary, that's going to be it for the show. I got to get out of here. I'm starving. And we should be back Saturday. We're back Saturday.
Saturday?
Saturday for sure. Yeah.
Morning, afternoon, or that'll be a game time decision?
Game time decision.
Okay.
Most likely in the morning time, so to speak, because it's Saturday. I don't want to do this in the midday. I want to be relaxing, so to speak. So I'll do this earlier on Saturday. There's no fight, anything like that. What else? Nothing new episode came out on our podcast feeds. Check that out. And quickly, Anthony Walker, co-host sometimes of MCR, but also of the Nothing New podcast. He's been going through a very tough personal loss of his, with his cousin passing away. So you follow him on social media. If you have his number, anyone out there listening, send some prayers, some good thoughts, some good vibes to our good friend of the show, our good co-host and contributor, Anthony Walker, as he's going through a very, very difficult time. And overall, like everyone out there, like mental health is such a serious issue. And like as somebody that like I've dealt with depression, I'm dealing with depression constantly. Like, please, like don't be afraid to just talk about it. You know, like to be vulnerable for a second. Like I think it was yesterday, the day before, I had just an awful day. I had a little bit of mental breakdown. And I was kind of texting the chat this, like I'm not doing well. I'm not healthy right now. I can feel it. And just saying that and saying to people that you can trust and are going to support you, even if it's just a, hey, we got you, we support you. That's all you need to hear sometimes. Reach out. I'm telling you, especially in this time, man, it's so hard to reach out sometimes if you are in your own head. And you shouldn't be. Like there are people out there that love you, that support you, that appreciate you. And if you think there aren't, then hit me up. Hit Gary up. Hit Rob up. Hit Fu up. Like we will help you out. Like this is a time where we need to take care of each other, especially. But that's my little PSA for today, guys. Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, on all social media platforms. Hit the like button, all that YouTube shit, podcast, feed, share the show. You know what to do. You've been in this world. You know how the internet works. Gary.
Good show today. It's good to be back. It's good that Matt's computer made it. Right? Only one or two hiccups.
One or two, yeah. One or two.
When you left, I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm the Robin. I'm not the Batman. I can't play Batman here. From Texas to the world, thank you. God bless.
You guys have a great day. Peace.